For the Longoria women who endured, who led, who protected, and who dreamed, this work is yours. Through Gregoria Suarez de Longoria, we witness the world of the Soldados de Cueras, the leather jacket soldiers, but it is the women who carried that world on their shoulders. This story is dedicated to them, and ultimately to all women whose courage is too often unrecorded, but never forgotten. Sorry for the length of the video. I will try to keep them shorter.
Gregoria Suarez de Longoria was born into two worlds that rarely touched: the legal aristocracy of Mexico City and the military frontier of Nueva Vizcaya. Her father, Licenciado Pedro Suarez de Longoria, was a high-ranking legal scholar who had undergone a limpieza de sangre investigation, a requirement for elite office in New Spain. Her paternal grandparents, Pedro Cosme de Longoria and Maria Suarez de Longoria, came from the Consejo de Miranda in Asturias, Spain. Her mother, Maria de Urdinola y Lois, was the daughter of Francisco de Urdinola, governor of Nueva Vizcaya, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men on the northern frontier. Through him, Gregoria inherited a legacy of presidios, Tlaxcalan allies, and the brutal realities of the Chichimeca Wars. Gregoria was, by birth, frontier royalty. As Gregoria played in the courtyard of her home, she could hear the sounds of the city of palaces, Mexico City, around her like a dream carved in limestone. Its plazas echoed with the voices of scholars, magistrates, merchants, and priests. Carriages rattled over cobblestones. Church bells mocked the hours. In the heart of the city, behind an elaborately carved wooden door, bearing the Longoria crest, Gregoria played, not knowing that one day she would stand at the edge of empire. She was no more than 8 when she wandered into her father's study, drawn by the glow of morning light on parchment. Pedro sat at his desk, surrounded by scrolls and bound volumes imported from Spain. His quill moved with the precision of a man whose words could shape the fate of families, estates, and entire provinces. "Gregoria," he said without looking up, "ink is the blood of law. It must be handled with care." She approached quietly, her small hands clasped behind her back. "May I watch, father?" "You may watch," he said, "but do not touch." She stood beside him, absorbing everything: the smell of ink, the rustle of paper, the weight of authority. Her father's position had opened doors few could enter. Petitioners came to him daily, bowing, pleading, offering gifts. He was respected, feared, and obeyed. Outside the study, her mother's world was different. Maria de Urdinola y Lois, daughter of the governor of Nueva Vizcaya, carried the frontier in her voice. She told stories of Saltillo, of Tlaxcalan warriors, of raids and presidios, and the endless northern sky. Gregoria would sit at her feet, wide-eyed, as her mother described the land where she had been born. "A place where the wind never rests," Maria would say. "Where men ride for days without seeing a church tower. Where your grandfather built towns from nothing." Gregoria imagined it: vast plains, distant mountains, horses running like shadows across the earth. It felt like another world entirely. In Mexico City, her days were filled with lessons: reading and writing, catechism, music, embroidery, the etiquette of elite Criollo society, which is of Spanish descent, but born in the New World. She learned to walk with grace, to speak with precision, to bow at the right angle. She learned which families held power, which names carried weight, which alliances mattered. At night, when the city quieted and the candles burned low, she would slip onto the balcony and stare northward, toward the unseen frontier her mother spoke of. A place of danger, a place of freedom, a place where her bloodline already had roots. One evening, her father joined her on the balcony. He rested a hand on her shoulder. "You are a Longoria," he said. "Your future will be shaped by law, by lineage, by duty." Gregoria nodded, though her eyes remained fixed on the distant horizon. "And you are an Urdinola," he added, softer now. "There is iron in that name. Do not forget it." Even as a child, she felt the pull of two worlds: the ordered world of Mexico City, the untamed world of the North. She did not yet know which one would claim her, but fate was already moving. Letters arrived from Saltillo, requests for legal opinions, reports of raids. News of a young sergeant rising quickly through the ranks, Diego Jimenez, a man her grandfather trusted. And though she could not yet understand it, the frontier was already calling her. Years later, the ink she had once been told not to touch was now being used to write her own future. The document on the desk was no longer a legal opinion for a distant petitioner. It was a marriage contract. The name Diego Jimenez was no longer a whisper in a letter, but a signature in bold writing. Her father dipped his quill one last time. He is a man of the Soldados de Cueras, leather jacket soldiers. He lacks the stone walls of Mexico City, but he possesses the land your grandfather conquered. Through him, you will return to the north. When Gregoria finally met him, he did not smell like parchment and old library dust. He smelled of wood smoke, rain-drenched leather, and the vast, open spaces of the frontier. As he took her hand, she realized the iron her father had spoken of wasn't just in her name. It was in the man standing in front of her. His handsome sun-baked face marked him with a permanent mask earned under a sun that did not care for titles. He looked at Gregoria with warmth and tenderness, not as a prize of law, but as a partner for a life where the only walls were made of mud and the only protection was the weight of his cuera. He is a man of few words, his voice roughened by years of shouting over the wind and the din of skirmishes. He leads from the front, his authority derived not from a law degree, but from the countless skirmishes and battles fought on the frontier. To the settlers of the Villas del Norte, he is the line between civilization and the unpredictable and dangerous frontier. He doesn't just fight, he negotiates, scouts, and builds. When Gregoria married Diego, a professional frontier officer, she was pulled directly into the world of the early Soldados de Cueras, the elite mounted, leather-armored soldiers who patrolled the most dangerous frontier in the Spanish Empire. Gregoria would not only come to know these men, but they would also become part of her family's daily life. Her husband commanded them. Her grandfather had relied on them. Her home was surrounded and secured by them. Diego was a leader of the Soldados de Cueras. Unlike the polished marble and soft linens of Gregoria's childhood in Mexico City, Diego's world was defined by survival, functional armor, and the vast, unyielding horizon. The morning Gregoria left Mexico City, the sky was the color of polished silver. The city stirred around her, vendors calling out tamales, priests ringing bells, carriages rattling over cobblestones, but she heard none of it. Her world had narrowed to the courtyard of her family home, where trunks were being loaded onto a mule train. Her father stood with her, hands clasped behind his back. "You leave as a Longoria," he said. "You will arrive as a Jimenez. But you will always be both." Gregoria nodded, though her throat tightened. She had been raised among scholars, magistrates, and the elite Criollo families of the capital. Now she was being sent to a land her mother called the edge of the world. Diego waited at the gate, dressed in traveling clothes, mounted on a sturdy frontier horse. He looked out of place among the polished stone and carved balconies, a man carved from a different world entirely. When she approached, he tipped his hat. "Are you ready, Señora?" She looked back at the only home she had ever known. "Yes," she said. "I am." The caravan moved north along the Camino Real de Tierra Adentro, the great artery that connected Mexico City to the mines and presidios of the frontier. The first days were gentle, rolling hills, vineyards, and the sound of church bells. Gregoria rode in a covered cart, watching the landscape shift from the manicured estates of the capital to the rugged plains beyond Querétaro. At night, Diego sat by the fire sharpening his espada ancha. Sparks rose into the dark. "You've traveled this road many times?" she asked. "Too many," he said, "but never with someone like you." She wasn't sure if he meant it as comfort or warning. Beyond Querétaro, towards San Miguel and the Silver Road, the land grew harsher. Dust clung to everything. The air smelled of mesquite and distant storms. Muleteers sang corridos to keep rhythm as they walked. Gregoria watched Diego ride ahead, scanning the horizon. He moved like a man who expected danger at every turn. One evening, she asked him, "Do you ever tire of looking over your shoulder?" He smiled faintly. "On the frontier, the day you stop looking is the day you die." Zacatecas rose from the desert like a fortress of stone. Its mines fueled the empire, and its streets were crowded with miners, merchants, soldiers, and gamblers. Gregoria had never seen a place so alive and so dangerous. Diego guided her through the plaza. "Stay close," he murmured. "This city has teeth." They stayed 2 nights, but in that time Gregoria saw more than she had in years. Drunken brawls, Tlaxcalan porters carrying silver ingots, mule trains stretching for miles, and soldiers wearing patched cueras stained with sweat and dust. She realized then that Diego's world was not an exaggeration. It was a crucible. North of Zacatecas, the road narrowed into a trail. The land opened into vast plains broken by thorn scrub and distant mountains. Days passed without seeing another soul. Gregoria felt the weight of silence. "Is it always like this?" she asked. "Sometimes quieter," Diego said. At night, the sky blazed with stars. Gregoria had never seen so many. She felt small beneath them, and strangely free. One evening, as they camped near a dry arroyo, Diego handed her a small knife. "For what purpose?" she asked. "For whatever purpose you need," he said. "The North does not forgive the unprepared." She tucked it into her sash, feeling the weight of it against her hip. Saltillo was not a city of palaces. It was a city of wind and stone, built by men who carved a life from the desert. Gregoria met her mother's kin, stern-faced Urdinolas with weather hands and sharp eyes. They welcomed her with pride, happy to have her with them. "You carry our blood," her uncle said. "You will do well here." But Gregoria felt the shift. In Mexico City, she had been a daughter of privilege. Here, she was a woman of the frontier, expected to work, endure, and lead. She watched Diego speak with the presidial captain, discussing raids, patrol routes, and the state of the horses. She saw the respect the men gave him. He was not merely a soldier. He was a leader of this land. The final stretch to Boca de Leones was the harshest. The wind never rested. Dust devils spun across the plains. Coyotes howled at night. Gregoria rode beside Diego now, no longer sheltered in the cart. "Why do they call it Boca de Leones?" she asked. "Because everything here has teeth," he said. As they approached the mission, she saw adobe walls glowing in the sun, scattered ranches, smoke rising from cook fires, soldiers riding patrol, Tlaxcalan families tending fields, children playing in the dust. It was not beautiful like Mexico City, but it was alive, and it was hers now. The mission bell rang as they entered the valley. Women paused their work. Children ran to greet the caravan. Soldiers nodded to Diego with respect. Gregoria stepped down from her horse, her legs trembling from days in the saddle. A young girl approached her shyly. "Are you the new señora?" she asked. Gregoria smiled. "Yes, I suppose I am." Diego stood beside her, dust-covered and proud. "Welcome home," he said. Gregoria looked at the mission, the mountains, the endless sky. This was not the world she had been born into, but it was the world she had been destined for. And as the wind swept across the plains, she felt something settle inside her, a quiet certainty. She had arrived at the mouth of the lion. And she was ready. She had to be ready.